just when you thought it was safe to think that you didn't need another amp. Well, let me throw a wrench into that one. The BE100 Deluxe. The BE100 Deluxe is the new flagship amplifier from Friedman Amplification. It now features 3 channels. First up in the clean slot is the Plexi channel. This was inspired by the Plexi channel of the Friedman small box. It features 3-band EQ, a volume, gain, bright switch, and a fat switch, which is located on the rear panel. The BE and the HBE channels share a treble, mid, and bass EQ, although they have independent gain and volumes for each of those channels. There's a front panel voice switch, which will vary the top-end response of these channels. All the way to the left of the control panel are the power amp controls. A presence control, a 3-position response control, a thump control, which varies the low-end response of the amp, as well as a 3-way position switch, which alters the frequency of the thump control. And a first for the BE amps is a system control, which is a global master volume for each of the 3 channels. On the rear panel, there's a structure switch, which is similarly found on many other Friedman amps, that lowers the gain of those channels. A C45 switch, which gives the channels a more vintage voice, and a saturation switch, which will throw these channels into that classic Friedman sat switch mode. On the rear of the amp, you'll find the power and standby switches, the speaker jacks, the transparent Friedman effects loop, and the foot switch jack for the channel switching. Now that we have that out of the way, let's just dive in. That is the Plexi channel. Gain is maxed out on that. It's just like rock. It's AC/DC and Led Zeppelin and all that just awesome humbuckers and loud. It's great. You can see on my settings here, the bright switch is set in the most neutral setting, which is the middle. Gain is maxed out. There's just all of the tone is about at 2 o'clock, and the volume's really low set here. It's about 1.5, which is a decent level because over here in the power amp section, the system volume is up to about 7 or so. So if you want to kind of take the system volume, the master volume, out of the equation, so to speak, get it up to between 6 and 8. You don't have to put it on 10, but between 6 and 8, and this sucker is loud. Now, The nice part is if you want to just pull all of that down, to me it sounds maybe more natural than like going to like having a 1 watt setting or 5 watt setting or something like that. That just works. Here, let me show you the difference here. Here is system volume is up. Channel volume is where it's at. Let's pull the system volume down to like 3. Let's go down lower. Let's go to 2. And then turn this guy back. It's a really natural give and take of the channel volumes and the master volumes. Now with single coils, still a killer rock sound, but I could clean this up. Gain down to 5 or 6. The bright switch on the Plexi channel is effective at lower gain settings. Let me show you here. To the left is bright 1. To the far right is, we'll call it bright 2. It's a little even more bright. Go back to bright 1, which is my personal favorite on that. And you'll hear the effectiveness of the bright switch go away as you turn up the gain. Back to neutral. There's also a dedicated fat switch for the Plexi channel, which is really nice at fattening up single coils. The fat switch off, it's a little more open and not as thick. We have arrived at the BE channel, the legendary BE channel. And that goes a little something like this. That's just bare bones BE goodness right there. Now let's take a look over at our master section again. We have presence and thump, which are right here for you. Presence, if you want to get a little more cut. And thump, if you want some of that bottom end that's below the bass knob. It's kind of like almost a cabinet resonance. That would probably be too much, but it sounds so good and it feels so good when you're sitting in front of it. Now that just filled out the bottom end really nicely. Setting the depth control to about 5.5 is a good starting point for the classic BE100 tone. Underneath the presence control is the 3-position response switch. To the far right is the stock BE tone. In the leftmost setting, everything gets a little warmer. Perhaps a little fatter too. So this isn't really a switch where you're going to be switching on the fly without adjusting the other settings. But there's a lot of give and take in this amp. You could just ignore these and leave them set all the way to the right, which gives you the great classic BE sound. But if you want some further tweaking, set that all the way to the left. Everything warmed up a little bit. Now let's give us some more treble. it's just kind of a warmer, fatter version of this awesome BE. So I'm going to send it back to BE mode. Pull that back a little bit. Let's see where we left. Now you get that awesome modified crunch-o-rama back. Give us a little more treble. The middle setting on the response switch really pushes those mids out. So you have to do quite a bit of adjusting for that. Let's pull the treble and mids back, give us as much bass as we can get, maybe drop the presence. I like that. It's pretty aggressive, but it's just another one of the tones at the palette. The frequency switch for the thump is just where that bottom end girth lands. All the way to the left is a lower setting. It comes off a little deeper, scoops out some of the lower mids. And the middle setting actually will push mids. And lastly, on the front panel, there's a voicing switch for the HBE and the BE modes. At the center setting, this is classic BE mode. To the left, it gets a little warmer, and to the right, it gets a lot warmer. To the right. The response and the voice switches are sort of like color filters over the overall tone. So you'll set that setting and then you have to adjust accordingly. The first switch on the back is the fat switch for the HBE and the BE channels. This does a great job of fattening up the notes. Here I have a little bit of a leaner sound dialed in. Now let's turn that on. It gives a nice sort of like warm hug to the notes that really makes them kind of puff up. I like this mode a lot. The SAT switch on the back is one of those switches that changes the entire character of the amp. It already has a lot of gain and it makes it a gain monster. Let me show you that. Here's without. SAT. You saw that the level drop there. That happens with the SAT switch. Easy enough to fix. You feel that everything is a little more scooped, it's a little more spongy. It's easy to play, it's humongous sounding in a mix. The C45 switch gives the amp a more classic vibe. I love how the top end just opens up just a little bit and everything feels, I don't know, more vintage to me. Here's without it. Here's with it. I like that C45. There's something else going on. Maybe it makes everything a little spongier, but not in the same way that the SAT switch does. So it makes everything a little nicer and easier to play with opening the top end up in kind of a vintage way, like that C45 switch. Last up on the rear panel is the structure switch. The structure switch will lower the overall gain structure of these channels. Why would you want to lower the gain? I don't know, maybe you're a lower gain kind of guy. It's okay. Take a little riff. What that gave you is just killing Plexi channel rock tone, and then you could set up your BE channel to be pretty close to the Plexi channel, or your sort of vintage inspired lead channel, but it's got all the gain you could ever use, or just like a little more. We haven't even made it to the HBE channel yet. Let's go there. The HBE starts where the BE channel leaves off. It adds a little extra aggression across the whole spectrum. Even at lower gain settings, you can feel that aggression. Let's turn the gain up. Oh yeah. So tasty. That's all the gain until you activate the SAT switch. As you can hear, there's endless tonal possibilities with this amp. But if you're not a knob tweaker and switcher, no worries. You could just set and forget and be off on your own with 3 channels of glorious rock and roll. So, yeah. I mean, I don't even need to tell you, right? BE100 Deluxe.